amazing speakers, and this one is another, like, I mean, when I think about Lola Flash and your body of work,
and this one is another, like, I mean, when I think about Lola Flash and your body of work, and this one is another, like.
Okay, I think there might be a second window open on your end, Lola. Just 1 second, y'all.
Just 1 second, y'all.
You may have the actual
Just 1 second.
computer.
That should be it. My bad.
No worries. Yes. So you have, I mean, your work spans decades. You have been covering historic moments and movements. Take us, I guess, at the beginning.
Okay. Do you want me to show my slides or just talk about it?
Oh no, yeah, you can definitely share your slide.
Let's start that way. I think I'd like to share work, and then any questions, whatever. Okay. This is different. So it's telling me to upload a file.
It may tell you, yeah, I think you might have to do that.
Okay. I don't want to waste people's time.
Michael says, take your time.
All right, so it says some screens let you share audio. Okay, Michael, I'm doing it for you.
The link to Lola's site in the chat. You all must check it out.
It's not like Zoom. I don't get it. Do you want to just maybe share the images that I gave you?
Yeah, I can do that. Just 1 second.
Okay. While you're getting those together, I'll just talk a little bit about me. Hey, everyone. There we go. So I'm Lola Flash, and I've been working in photography for over 4 decades. I've really been enjoying, Polly, listening to the various photographers, and we all have so much to say and do it in so many different ways. It's just really incredible. I suppose in some ways I kind of wish that there was something like this for me when I was growing up, to know that there's so many other Black women photographers. And I also, hello everybody, I see you, Lolita. Lots of buddies out there. I know some of my Kamonge brothers and sisters are out there as well. I also wanted, Polly, to thank you, to start off by thanking you for inviting me. When people think of Black women photographers, I think that a lot of us queer ones are not included. You only have to really do a Google search and say Black women photographers, and you really don't see queer women or trans women or non-binary women or non-binary people. So this is really important because even though women we're often challenged by society, right? We're often excluded. But then I find that I'm within this group of people who exclude me. I'm like, what's up with that? So to not only be sometimes I feel like, we're still in the days of tokens, and I'm sure that there's some Black women photographers out there that find themselves the only Black women on these panels. And then I feel like a lot of times I'm like the only queer person. So like there's other queer people, like how great to be able to follow past Delovi, right? I don't know if I pronounced their name correctly, but it makes me feel so included, and it makes me feel like what I have to say is really going to be listened to, and hopefully some people will agree or also have similar experiences. So I feel like for the most part, really, I'm an activist who is using photography to think about racism, sexism, homophobia, and now transphobia. Right, so it's the vehicle I use to bring these issues to the forefront, and then have people learn about things, sometimes maybe butt against me with some of the things that I'm talking about. But I feel like it's given me my life. I don't know what I would do without photography. It's like all the things that happen that are really messed up. I can make a photographic series about it and just switch the narrative. And as all of us have been talking about, oh, how funny that Malika just says that. Yeah, I mean, like, so many of us have stories that have not been told. And some of us have even been, kind of shunned and quieted, like, especially I think those that sort of the feminine nature, right? It's like we're supposed, still it's like something from like many centuries ago, like, we're supposed to be seen but not heard, right? And so I feel very blessed to have photography as this vehicle to talk about the issues that are around. When I think about how things have changed, when I was a baby dyke, like, I didn't think that I could get married. And in fact, part of the whole sort of, especially like in the sort of when I was an AIDS activist, when I was part of ACT UP, we had people dying like left and right. So the thought of like marriage was it seemed kind of frivolous to be thinking about, being demonstrating about that, and I think for a long time, especially a lot of us old school activists were kind of like, why do we want to be like straight people? Why do we want that burden of marriage? But it's really just about equity, right? So that those people who want to be able to marry can marry. And here I am engaged. It's like, where is it? I'm engaged now, and I just thought that I would be like, who am I? It's after all these years of just thinking like, no, I don't want to be part of, this sort of patriarchal society. But yet still, exactly, equity. And I found that person, you know what I mean? So it's, I'm coming to a really sort of happy place. Okay, we went to my website, great. All right, cool. So these are some of my photographs from the Cross Color series. I think if you keep going, so this is, that work. So this one, if you want to hold on this image. So this work was really a mistake. So for those of you who are just starting out, or those, no matter what age you are, mistakes are really good a lot of times. So I was using the wrong paper, and so I was using slides. So, I don't want to seem like this old person, but when I started photography, there was no digital cameras, right? So I was shooting slide film, and I started printing when I was in college at Maryland Institute. I started printing on negative paper, so I started getting the opposite colors. And so I started preparing myself or thinking about, all right, when I shoot this, like when I shoot the pool, for instance, it's a cool color. So when I print it, it's going to be a warm color, right? And so, obviously blood is red. And so, this sort of symbolizes, this tainted blood from those who are affected with HIV. And I think if you go on, there should be some examples. So I'm in college, right? And I'm making these weird pictures, and my teachers are like, what are you doing, Lola? And I'm like, I don't know. I just really like the color. And so because I was in this academic environment, I needed to figure out, like, make sense of it, right? So then I started thinking about, when I was young, I was a nerd. I'm still pretty much a nerd. I love learning, and I love the dictionary. So I knew that Black was bad, that Black was wrong, dirty. And I knew that white was perfect, angelic, right? And so I realized that my photographs, what I was doing is I was changing, right? I was making Black people white people Black. Imagine if I took a picture of a black cat, which is supposed to be bad luck, right? So that bad cat all of a sudden turns into a white cat, which is good luck. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I can actually change people into green and purple and all other kinds of colors. It's really moving away from this binary idea of color. So it worked really well with my AIDS work, and I did that for about 20 years. And are there any more on here? Oh, good timing. So this one is a self-portrait from 1990, as you can see. There's my butt and my favorite chaps at the time. And, this photograph is actually hanging in the Museum of Modern Art right now. Last year, they acquired 7 photographs from my cross-color series. Yes, Black folks are nerds too. Oh, great, yes. And so it's really, you know, for me, I want to kind of give this message about like sort of the longevity of our careers. And so for me, my only ambition was not to be a photographer whose work is in the Museum of Modern Art. You know, for me, it was really more about showing my people, well, just working around all the different issues that I mentioned earlier, like racism, sexism, homophobia, and working within those realms and really showing people like, you know, look at our beauty, right? This is not, you might think that we are this way, but we're not. And so it was really about exposing all of my communities. You know, when you think about intersectionality, you know, I got it all pretty much, you know, and so it really was my chore to talk to my models, to say, you know, hey, I'm doing a series about beauty, and most people are like, oh, beauty, you know, and so I was able to create this, you know, decades of work, and I think a lot of what I felt like doing, I felt like my work was doing, was actually really on a personal level. Like those people know, all the models that I photograph, they know that I'm coming into their home to photograph their beauty, right? So it's a real kind of one-to-one thing, which in many ways, I really never really wanted to be in museums because I didn't think that those were the audiences that really deserved to see my beautiful images, you know? And now I'm kind of like moving on, because that's what happens, right? We get older, we change. You know, sometimes we like the color blue, and we get older, sometimes we like the color black, right? We change, and we have to listen to our changing bodies. Some foods don't work right with us, and when we get a certain age, or you know what I mean? It's like, or you know, maybe when you're little you didn't like oysters, but now you like them, right? So it's the same thing, I think, with our art, and just really with our philosophies, is that we have to listen to what we're thinking and be willing to change. And so now I'm obviously very excited to be part of the MoMA collection. Great, nice time. You're doing great, Polly. Thank you so much.
I mean, that alone is an achievement. You've achieved so much. Being able to be acquired by a museum, like you said, these institutions, I mean, if we looked at back at their history, how many collections do they have of Black queer people in their permanent collection?
Well, that's what I realized. You know, I was like, okay, this is, you know, I've always known, and I've heard this from several different photographers, that, you know, it's really not about us. It's about like leaving this legacy. It's about those coming up, you know. So like 100 years from now, some little queer kid can walk into the MoMA and see my images, or see images of me possibly, because they bought 3 self-portraits. And to say like, oh wow, I look like Lola Flash, or I could be like Lola Flash, or you know, there's nothing wrong with me. You know, it legitimizes folks. And so I realize now that it's very important. And even when I'm there, I've had, you know, I've been going there a lot actually lately to see it with my friends. And I was telling my friends just the other day about the work. And this couple comes up to me and they're like, you know, we really appreciate your work. We have a trans kid, and we're trying to work with them, and all we really care about is them being happy, you know. And so it's really important to create these conversations and to make people realize that, to validate people. This is Teak from my Surmise series. Teak is a trans activist that's been doing a lot of great stuff. This is really early days Teak. And this series is all about, it's about being gender fluid. You know, I suppose in this sense, this series started really because I'm always misgendered. Every day I walk out of my apartment, you know, can I help you, sir? Excuse me, sir. I don't mind it, to be honest with you. It's like, if that's what they see, so be it. You know what I mean? I'm not going on a date with them. So what does it matter? As long as, you know, they give me my film or whatever it is I'm doing in a camera store, just give me my stuff and let me go, right? For some people, it's not that way. Some people feel really, they feel that their gender is not being affirmed it hurts them, right? And so at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what our genders are, right? To me, as long as you're a person, as long as you're making like this world a better place, that's all that matters. Now, if you want to date that person, then maybe the gender does matter, right? But like bathrooms, thank goodness bathrooms are being neutralized, right? Because now, if there is a gender neutral bathroom, I'll use that because it still is a process going to the ladies' bathroom. So I can't imagine there's anyone in here, but if any of your friends holler at girls that look like boys in the bathroom, please tell them to stop, because it's really like, I'm laughing, but it's really, it's the only time I'm not being an activist. And it might seem odd to talk about the bathroom, but you know, I was before COVID, I was at a jazz place with my cousin, and we were having the best of time, you know, and I just went to the bathroom, and this lady in New York City, in the Village of all places, this lady hollered at me, you know, and it really it didn't taint my night, but it did make me just think, like, really? Like, I expected it, you know, when I'm maybe traveling on the turnpike, whatever. But you know, the point is that for this particular series, it's really just that, please stop putting us in boxes, you know, and even like DeLovey, you know, said there's like not even boxes for them, right? There's not a box for them, which is problematic too, but also like, why do we need boxes? Why can't we just let people be, you know?
No, absolutely. One of the questions that I have for you is, you know, your career started by you photographed all these social movements, all these political movements. You are an activist yourself. How have you seen the role of photography within just activism movements or social uprisings or whatever evolve?
Oh my gosh, I mean, you know, when I think of Instagram, you know, I see the strength of it and the weaknesses, you know, and so I'm enjoying, you know, sort of the whole time during the times when Mr. Floyd was killed. You know, it was exciting to see so many amazing images from so many different photographers, both professional and not professional, you know, and many people's careers kind of got spun by that period. So I think that it's great because, like, when I'm in the beginning, you know, the beginning of time, when I first went to my pride demonstration, or pride marches, as we used to call it back then, you know, anyone who was home, maybe they were sick or whatever, you know, we're like, did you see anything on TV yet? You know, and there was nothing. You know, all of the different demonstrations we had for ACT UP, shutting the Brooklyn Bridge down, all the things we did in DC, none of them were televised. You know, and so social media has really helped so many people's agendas so far as making things visible. But I think sometimes some people are kind of like, oh, this is a new problem. Oh no, this has been a problem for a long time. You know, like what was the saying? The revolution will not be televised. You know, and it is now, right? And so I think that is just amplifies the power of photography. I see. I mean, this isn't really part of the question, but I'm also, you know, like seeing magazine covers. When I was a kid, every magazine cover had a white lady on it. You know, now we have our own magazines, and of course there was always Jet, for those of you who remember Jet, and Ebony. But now there's so many different music, you know, magazines, and the point is, like, in media, I see our faces a lot. Not so much like Butch Dykes like me, but I do see more queer imagery and more people of color who are coming forward in those things. So, you know, I mean, the change is a coming, but it's taking a long time. Yeah.
When you first started documenting, you know, it was the ACT UP movement. Did you know that your work would still stand within, like, you know, capture this moment in time and withstand this time? Did you ever feel like you were making history in that moment?
Yeah, no, I always was, because I went to art school, you know, I consider myself a fine artist. And so I think, especially when I was young, I really didn't think I think when you're, when you're in your 20s, you don't really think about 3 decades later. You're so living in the moment, and so I really didn't think about that. And I think also because I was doing all those weird colors, a lot of people didn't look at the work as documentary until now. I mean, that's what the museums are seeing. That work really sort of like captivates or speaks to what we were going through during that time. Even like the fashions, I look at the fashions and I'm like, oh my God, like I'm wearing now, how fashions kind of come around again. I'm like, I'm wearing those again. Like these glasses, I have them on in one of the pictures at MoMA. I'm like, that was back in the 80s, and now I'm wearing a similar type of style, So yeah, I think that's a really one of the many exciting parts of being an older photographer is that you look at your work differently. Even when I look at my context sheets or my transparencies, I think to myself, why did I choose that one? Because I like this one better. Just your taste changes. This is a picture of Charles. If you want to just go back one second, it's from the same shoot that there's actually a picture of Charles in the museum that they bought where he's actually sitting down, but it's from the same photo shoot. And this is an example where I was specifically using Band-Aids to put on his body. It was kind of part of this series called Band-Aids, so it was like a double entendre about Band-Aids and also Band-Aids not matching our skin color. So I knew that if I put those little round Band-Aids on Charles, who's dark skinned, and then I pushed it to, when I printed, I added a lot of, I don't know, magenta, yellow, and cyan, and I made it so that he was purple, so that it signified the Kaposi's that many people who were HIV positive got, which was a skin cancer that they got. And just really briefly, as you can see, Charles passed away. He's one of many friends that passed away from AIDS, and the fact that he's, thinking about the power of photography, the fact that he's hanging in MoMA now, I have this idea that he's kind of standing in the corner like all day long and just saying to people, that's me, because he was just really like very fun and very silly. And so it also, it brings some sense of happiness to that time, to all the loss. So the way that photography has that staying power is something, again, that I never really thought about. And during that whole time of the AIDS crisis, I didn't have any time to think at all. Really, a lot of it was really just responding, going to a demonstration, going to a meeting, and going to a funeral, going to the hospital. And sort of that was like what we did during that time. So now being able to step back, it's very fulfilling to, one, have the work in MoMA, and to also be able to bring some happiness and joy.
That is powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to also turn to the body of work that you mentioned earlier at the beginning. I'm going to open up those photos right now.
I'm happy to answer questions, you all, too.
Yes, please, you all. We have a living legend with us. Please ask. Is this one I should start with?
Sure.
Okay.
This is the first one that comes up. Yeah.
I think it was the fun.
You're right. Okay, let's start with that one. We're starting here. We can start here.
Okay.
Okay. So this is my most recent series. This is actually what I've been working on for the last year through COVID. It started actually the day before, like a month or two before COVID happened. I was at a residency at the Center for Photography of Woodstock. And for those of you who are artists, residencies are an amazing place to just go and do what you need to do. Thank you, Lola. That was just so cool that Lola was on the same day too. I was just like, Lola, it's like you hardly ever hear Lola. So hey, sis. So this series started really with a friend of mine who was a curator, Jayashri. She said, I'm getting ready to do a show about Afrofuturism. Do you want to be part of it? I'm like, yeah. And so I kind of got these ideas together. I was thinking about, you know, I call it kind of like conceptual art 101. You know, if anyone does conceptual work, no, you know, my bad, but sometimes I just find it so intricate and kind of hurts my brain to figure out what the heck they're talking about. So this is just really very straightforward, you know, and it's a very different way than I work, because most of my work is pretty kind of, you know, I guess traditional. But this was, you know, so I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to get the helmet that things talks about the future. I'm going to, you know, I saw it had like orange piping on it. So I've been very horrified, it's not even the word, about the incarceration system in America. So in my bedroom, I have a whole bunch of prison uniforms. So I thought I'll wear that prison uniform. And then, of course, I had to get some orange handcuffs, which they're real metal. My friend was like, I thought they were plastic. I'm like, no, they're real, they're real. So this particular photograph was the first day that they cleaned the subway. So those of you all who are in New York, you know, I had heard that subways were really bizarre because there was a lot of homeless people down there, and there were, you know, because it was so quiet, because no one was going to work. This was like March, right? And so I was dying to go down there, you know, and I thought, I'm just going to go. No one wanted to go down there with me, so I just grabbed my tripod and ran, you know, got down there and just went up and down on the line a few bits. I hardly got any photos in focus. The camera had no idea where to focus because I was running, sitting, taking the picture, you know, waiting that 10 seconds. But I got lucky with this one shot. So I feel like someone else said something about luck, but there's definitely like, there's like luck. There's all kinds of like positive energies and spirits that I feel help me make my shots. We can go to the next one. This one's called Divinity. This one's called Divinity, and it's part of obviously part of the same series, the Vision, and I think just backtracking, you know, it's about the past, present, and future. So when I get to these places, again, thinking about spirits, I kind of just feel what the energy is there. This is a boat that I photographed for years in Brighton, and I just got lucky again. You know, that light is sort of like yin yang kind of lighting was just so perfect. So I just jumped in the boat, and that was the pose that felt right. I think because it just seems so symmetrical. So as I create these series, this is called Nevermind. And so the orange and the blue really work well together. And I'm kind of piecing together this narrative where right now I'm not really worried about the order. I'm just sort of thinking about the way that I feel, and you know, having some that are kind of just like silly, some are like what, and some of that are kind of obviously quite powerful in their kind of like anger. And so I'm actually going to be doing some more underwater stuff, because for me, throughout all of my work, really, you know, I suppose the core of my work really a lot of times has to do with my race, right? And so as we all know, the water, you know, thinking about our journey to the various places where we end up had to do with water, right? And we all know that a lot of people, a lot of our ancestors jumped out of the water, jumped out into the water, right? Because they didn't want to come into this idea of enslavement, right? So to me, the water is really not only powerful, but it's kind of, it still feels like it's very full of spirits. You know, I have these idea that there's like these kind of like mermaids wearing afros at the bottom of the sea, playing cards and, you know, drinking rum or something, you know. So I like to kind of spinning this story that kind of goes up and goes down. And at the end, we're all going to be free, y'all. We're going to be free, and we're going to be jumping from joy to joy, from planet to planet, you know. So again, I'm working towards having some funny things then, like here's me. And it's, even though it is me, I feel like I'm this avatar, become this kind of genderless kind of person who is kind of carrying the burden of everybody's struggles, right? So I'm eating one of those I always like those kind of black and white, you know, chocolate and strawberry, or chocolate and vanilla cones, you know. So again, thinking about, you know, this sort of like blurring of things.
That is amazing. And I see a question in the chat going back to the museum. How did that process go?
Was that the last visit, Jima? Yeah.
Yes, this was the last one.
Say the question again. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. There was a question going back to just the museum acquired your work. What was that process like?
Right. Okay. So great question. You know, in 2020, I woke up and I said to myself, well, you know how I don't ever really make New Year's resolutions, but I think for me, it's a really good time just to kind of reflect and think about what do I want this year to look like, you know? And I said to myself, you're going to reach out to these institutions and you're going to say to them, when is my studio visit? Right? It's like, you've been doing this stuff. So I had just turned 60. So I was like, okay, I think by now you're grown up. Like, I just never had this feeling of being a grown up. You know, I've always felt like a kid. I don't know what that is, but I suppose like for a long time I was teaching high school students, and maybe their influence just kind of kept me young. And I think also, to be honest, I think when you're queer, there's so many traditions that you don't have to fall into. You don't have to do what society tells you to do. To me, that seems to be one of the best freedoms of being queer. Is just like, is that, that you just do your own thing. And so I was just like, okay, you're going to reach out to these people. I know, that's funny. Thank you, Mercy. I said, you're going to reach out to these people. And so the first one was, funny enough, a friend of mine from MoMA had reached out to me for something else. And I was like, you know, here's whatever you need. I said, by the way, can you please connect me to your curators, your photography curators? It's like, they need to talk to me, you know? And so that's how that one happened. You know what I mean? I just, I made it happen, you know? And I think that's what happens for us for so many things in our lives, right? You just set your mind to it and you make it happen. You know, you think to yourself, I am worthy and I'm going to do this. So, you know, I'm looking at Kehinde Wiley, who's like part of 60 museums. And right now that's my goal for this year, is to set that as a goal. Of course, I would like to be in some private collections. I was just at the Frieze Art Fair. Oh, I'm finally being represented. I'm represented by a gallery called Karen Jenkins Johnson. She's a Black woman, and that's one of I mean, she's great too. But that's another reason why I went with her, because I was just like, we have to stay together. You know, Polly, this is a perfect example of like how we need to keep each other in mind, you know? And so I sold 2 out there at the Frieze Festival, my first experience, and that's where all the people go to buy art. So I felt like that was a really pretty good start to my venture into being represented by a gallerist. So again, it's that whole financial thing. I've always had a side job, you know. I've never felt the need to have a photographic career that paid my bills, because that way, and again, no offense, like I love a lot of the commercial work I saw. Y'all go do it, because we need more representation everywhere, right? The pictures that you're getting, that the commercial photographers that have been a part of this discussion, the photographs that they're getting are not the photographs that the white guys would get, right? So it's very important for them to be there too. But I decided that I wanted to do other work in order to fund my photography. I always say I teach to buy film, but you know, I fell in love with teaching. But you know, another exciting thing is that I just retired. So I'm about a week and 2 days into retirement, so that I can really fulfill my dream of, you know, getting my photographs out there and, you know, helping to create this idea of equity amongst us all.
So many amazing life moments happening. Congratulations on that as well. There's a follow-up question in the chat of, does the representation, the representative help you with negotiating your price? how do you even put a price on your work, first of all? But yeah.
Yes, yeah. I've been really lucky to have the support of excuse me, a pen and brush gallery, which is here in New York on East 22nd Street, right near my house. And they gave me a big show in 2018. So that was kind of like, even though at that point I was probably 35 years into my work, again, all the things that make me that have kept me passionate about my work are the same things that have kept me out of the the big picture, so to speak. The canon is what people call it. And so pen and brush has been helping me up until now. And but once sort of so 2018 was when I had a big solo show there. I was in the New York Times, and I worked for Smithsonian, did a great job with them. And then it sort of just started rolling. And so they kind of said, we love helping you, but we're not at a place where we can really push you to where you need to be or support you, right? Because they're a nonprofit. And so they helped me, and another friend helped me and pointed me towards Karen. And so I don't really know how she does it. I know she's a banker. She's good with money, and she's been doing it for a while, representing lots of great artists. So I suppose it's kind of based on what other photographs are selling for. The first, when you're a fine art photographer, one thing is that most of us sell editions of work. So right now we're selling like my bigger, like Divinity sold, right, the one in the boat. So the first two, might as well be honest, the first two sold for $12,000 each, right? So that's edition 1, edition 2. Now edition 3 is going to be more, right? So it makes, I think part of the thought is that it makes people kind of want to buy early, earlier than later. And then because there's less of them, then it becomes more. But yeah, I mean, luckily, thanks, Lolita. I know you. So yeah, so it's definitely, I don't think it's anything I'll ever really, not that I'm not excited about it, but it's because that's not what I'm doing the work for. Of course, I love that the work is out there and that more people are seeing it, and it's making people stop. I mean, even at the fair, there's so much artwork, you all. I was just kind of like, how do people even have the energy to listen to me or to care about my work? But people were like stopping and being like, if I saw they stood there for more than a minute or two, I was like, hi, I'm the artist. Do you want to hear what this work is about? Then I launch into my spiel, and it was just really very, very gratifying. So I think a lot of the work that we do, especially for us artists, it's so sort of, you're kind of on your own with your feelings or your thoughts. You are communicating with your model if you're working with people, but a lot of it is kind of just you with like these thoughts running around in your head. And so to be able to be with the public and talk to them about it, and to see that people are really, moved by the work, it's just like an extra layer that I don't think I really thought much about when I was younger. Because my work was pretty much underneath my bed for a lot of my life, and it still is under my bed. The work that's at MoMA was living under my bed for decades. Yeah, so go figure.
What? I can't believe it.
Yeah.
When do you think that how often, because I'm thinking just about you're just like your body of work, how have you maintained that archive, your own archive or your own legacy?
Yeah, it's that's definitely something that's on the to-do list for retirement. I'm pretty organized person, so my files are kind of intact. But like for instance, my surpassing series, I want to. Those are all. So most of my work is done with a 4x5 camera. The syzygy is not, but the salt. I don't know. Can we look at maybe syzygy or salt? And so those are all done on 4x5 transparencies, right? So that's like 4 inches by 5 inches transparencies. And so I scan them. So now I'm in the process of scanning all my surpassing series so that just wait for that. Okay, so this is Salt. So Salt is also done on a 4x5 camera, and I'll just talk about specifics about that. But so I'm going to now get all my slides transferred. This is like all kind of boring photography talk, but so I'm going to get them scanned all the same DPI, so that I can then, when when my gallery says, oh, so and so wants to buy, I've got Amy in my series, and so I can just say, okay, here's the file, so like those kinds of things I need to like have all at the same quality, and so far as like thinking about like where am I going to put my work when it goes, like where am I going to entrust it, like, so those are kinds of things I'm thinking about so far as going forward. And I don't know how much time we have left, but just really briefly, this is my series around SALT, called SALT, and it's about women who are over 70 and women who are still doing their thing. Like, this is Ruth Pointer, and I don't know if you all have seen her recently, but especially before the pandemic, she was still strutting herself across the stage with high heels on, mini skirts, and doing her thing, and she was just so pleasant. It was like meeting, she's actually not that much older than me, so I can't really say auntie, but she was like meeting a family member. She was just so beautiful, so warm, and still doing her thing, still just so happy to do her thing. And so it really is about, it's pointing to the fact that we are beautiful from like day one to the end, right? But society doesn't give us that, right? They say that, let's say George Clooney is handsome, which I think he's handsome, but I'm happy that he's married now. But we always heard about him being like this handsome bachelor. But what woman do we hear of that age, right? You all know what I'm talking about, so I don't have to go into depth. But this series just highlights those women who are just doing it for themselves. And I one of the things I haven't mentioned is that all of my series are ongoing. And this series, I know I'm going to end it in 7 years when I turn 70. I'm going to say that's it. I'm going to do a self-portrait, and it's going to be that on this series. But it's a wonderful series. I always get a bit of a high after I photograph, do my portraits. And I think this one I get a really super high. Agnes Gunn, I just want to go back again. Someone else, I forget, someone was talking about biases. And like, I think, even as Black people, and women, we have biases, right? We can't, the difference is that so many of us aren't in a position to hire people, so our biases aren't going to really matter at the end of the day. But even just thinking about keeping, I have a feeling that a lot of us are people who want to do the best and want to put good energy out into the world, right? And so when I find myself being biased, I'm just kind of like, stop that, Lola, right? You got to stop thinking about those things that your parents taught you, that the media is telling you, or maybe because you're tired, or like Agnes, my point is with her is that, she's rich. I think a lot of people don't like rich people, but this is a rich person who, if everyone in the world was like Agnes, there would be no hunger. She's put a lot of work into the art community here in New York and around the world. She sold her Liechtenstein for I don't know how many millions, and she started to give to an organization to start an organization around incarceration. And so cool it on the biases, or just recognize them and squash them, I think is really kind of the thing I wanted to talk about when I started that whole tirade.
It's just incredible. There's a follow-up question about from Regina about how do you approach or think about your work now versus when you first started?
I'm definitely much more confident. I think that it's kind of a hard question to ask, because I feel like once I got out of college, I got thrown into the AIDS epidemic, and it was sort of there was no time for reflecting. I knew I was a photographer. More and more fun pictures of me, like with my camera from like, the 80s are turning up. And I always had my camera with me. It's always been, even though when I was like 5 and 6, I had like a little camera that I always played around with. So it's always been something that I did. I don't think that I really understood the staying power of my work. Like, I wish I would have just, made doubles and triples of everything, so that I kind of just could have sealed them away, so that I could just be like, oh yes, MoMA, I actually have the whole A to Z here. Instead I have like G, A, and B. I don't have like all of the letters for the A to Z, So I wish I would have been more, I wish I would have been more confident and aware of how good I am. People are always saying that I was good, and I always kind of shied away from any kind of compliments. I was always kind of like, thank you, kind of thing like that, instead of thank you. So now I'm much more like, I'm Lola Flash. It's hard for me to say, but I know that I'm the bomb, and y'all get used to it. And I'm growing into this kind of way of being, because I wasn't raised that way. We were raised just to be very, very sort of humble and, just good people. And I feel like I am a good person. I do my best to do right among other folks. But I don't think that I have, up until really this point, and not even just because of MoMA or Whitney or the African American Museum in Washington, D.C., all of these accolades that I've gotten over the last couple of years. But I think it's just a thing, for me personally, I think it's just a thing about age, where I just said to myself, I looked at other people's work, I looked at other people's careers. Again, I think going back to pen and brush, Donna Parker, if you're out there, and Eliza, hello, thank you. When I saw that work, because for many of us, we don't get to see all of our work together. So we don't see like what we're really thinking about, except for in these little photographs, these singular photographs. And so when I was able to look at that work, even the cross-color work, I had like just put that out of my mind. I was like, I don't do that anymore. And, Dawn and Parker, they were like, what are you doing? We need to see this work, And so, they were like, I can see how this goes with that. And so when I was able to sort of look back at like, this 35 years of work, I was like, damn, girl, you are good. You know what I mean? So it's definitely, it's been a work in progress. Love you too, Dawn. And I think some of it is societal, for sure, that often women, especially in my age range, we were told not to be in such a way, not to be flashy, so to speak. But I think so many of us now are like, just like me walking in and talking about when's my studio visit, right? Like I wouldn't have thought I could even manage to do something like that, or think of something like that, back when I was younger. And like we touched on before, I think just the power of photography, the staying power of photography, to look at that work, and so there's like I guess there's a tiny bit of sadness in me, because the same damn problems that I've been working on are still, many of them still the same damn problems. So I think that it makes me a little sad, but then it fuels that anger, which just makes me pick that camera up and go out and either start another series or keep on going. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. I brought up this body of legends because I love the fact that you celebrated these folks who were legends in their own right. And like I said, I feel like you are a living legend. So how have you seen, I would say, or what are your thoughts on just like seeing, I feel like now Black photographers, Black women photographers are now being celebrated, are now being brought to the forefront. Maybe even some of your peers as well are now getting their flowers, and even you too getting your flowers. What is that feeling like for you?
I don't need to, but it's not. It's like I said, to be honest with you. I mean, I mean, at the end of the day, as Black people, in many ways, we're lucky to be alive, right? Every day, every day, we could be driving and pulled over by the cops and, or just walking. I mean, I was arrested for walking while Black, right? So the older I get, the more I just wake up every morning, like my grandfather used to always say, you know, I woke up this morning, you know what I mean? And I kind of feel like that because it's like, you know, you just, you know, and I find like, I think I do talk about it more too, because I just feel so blessed to have been able to be, to still be here and still be talking about what the heck has been happening, you know? Wow. Oh, I love you too, Daryl. Yeah, and so you know, it's a gift. I feel blessed, and I feel so happy. You know, like someone was talking about, you know, being on Instagram and sizing themselves up against other people. Um, I can't imagine being a younger photographer in that situation sometimes, especially if you have a bad day. Because if I have a bad day, sometimes I tend to not look at Instagram because I know it's going to trigger me, right? And then there's certain people who I just stop following me because I stop following because they trigger me. But you know, I know that I think I have like 4,000 followers now, but I know that that does not say my worth, right? And like, would I rather have, you know, 20,000 or 100,000 followers and no work in MoMA? Or do I want to have my little happy 4,000 and have work in MoMA? You know what I mean? And so I think that for younger photographers, I think it's great to have things like this so that people can hear us talking about our processes, the way that we feel, that yes, we feel this way sometimes too. But you know, just kind of got to remember what the goal is and what your thing is. And I think the more that we hear each other's stories, I mean, it's been so beautiful to hear other Black women photographers during this, you know, for this conference that you created. It like normalizes you, like you kind of put yourself, it puts us in a place where we can enjoy hearing other stories and be like, I know what you're talking about, or oh, that was your experience, you know what I mean? And so that because there's more, I'm gonna relate more. Well, no, that's not true. I think I'm gonna take that back. I think we can often relate to each other's stories, but then sometimes we cannot, right? And that's the whole thing about the breadth of our stories. It's like, no, we don't have the same stories. And we haven't had the glory to be able to hear everybody's stories. So I think that's one of my favorite things about seeing other people, you know, getting their flowers, so to speak. And it just makes me happy to, you know, again, like another cliche, like it's lonely at the top, right? Like you don't want to be the only person up there, you know, like I'll be glad when America is able to say that I am one of the top Black queer female photographers out here, or someone else. You know, like where are all the queer Black female photographers in America? I always say thank goodness for Zanelli, you know, because Zanelli has had major shows all over the freaking world. Thank goodness Zanelli is able to bring queer images to people who have never seen them before, right? And so, you know, America though, we don't like, America likes other people's problems, right? Like what they just gave, like, well, I'm not going down that road, but I don't want to start any controversy there, but you know, why do you think so many American artists have gone to Europe? You know what I mean? It's like a lot of times I feel like America doesn't like to embrace us, right? They'll embrace someone from another country, but not us. So, you know, that would be something that I would like to look forward to, you know, like in the MoMA, there's one of my pictures is of two boys kissing. I mean, how many times do you go into a museum and you see, you know, a queer couple embracing? You know, I mean, you see loads of titties, right? But you don't see, you know, beauty of love, right? Same-sex love. And so, you know, those are kinds of things. I think I kind of went off of what you were saying, but I just feel like that those things help me feel included, and it makes me feel very happy to see others, getting their flowers, because so much of it is long overdue.
There's like 4 decades and some just capturing and documenting stories and people. Are there stories that you feel like you still need to tell?
I think right now I feel like I kind of have my hands full with all the projects that I'm working on right now. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's funny, like now that I'm retired, it's like a new chapter. So this is a great time for this conference to start, because it's making me think of things. Um, it's giving me some love, which I really am enjoying. And it's like I have sort of this whole part of my brain that's not been used yet to think about other kinds of projects. So I don't really have anything. My main thing that I'm really working on is doing residencies. I'll be doing a residency in the Everglades. It's called AIRIE, AIRIE. I'll be there for the whole month of October. So I'm super excited about that. My grandmother Lola, my paternal grandmother Lola, she was Native American, and she was from that area. That's where my dad was born, in Florida. So I kind of want to do a little bit more research about her and about the Native Americans, the Seminoles, that were that was sort of the group of tribes that were in mostly in the Everglades. So I want to use that kind of ancestral backdrop for this series, for that series, for Syzygy, and do some more research into that side of my family. I just applied to one in Death Valley because I really love the sort of futuristic look that that area has. When I went to LA, I went down to Palm Springs and to Joshua Tree and got a few images from there, and so really want to go back there. So those are the kinds of things I really want to work on. Again, I can't stress how important residencies are. Even if I know when I was younger, I really didn't want to go to them because they always seem like they're like outside of the city, and like I didn't at the time photograph really nature or anything. But now I do photograph, I do sort of take a break from political work, and I do sometimes, in some ways, I call them like my watercolors. I photograph nature. But that's really what I want to do, just to immerse myself in these residencies. It's just such a amazing way to just totally focus on, you get like a little routine. Like usually I'll like get up in the morning and read for a couple of hours and maybe watch some YouTube stuff and then maybe shoot and, just kind of keep that thing going. There's no one around you to bother you or to distract you, so I really would like to focus on doing that. So maybe in those environments, maybe there'll be something that will come up and I'll be able to email you and tell you, this is my next thing I'm doing.
Amazing. There's a question from Maria asking, what advice would you give to beginner photographers who let fear hold them back?
That's a really great question. I went to sorry, I'm trying to think of her name. I went to a book launch of Frida Payne. Frida Payne just came out with so Frida Payne, for you all youngsters, is her famous song was like a Band of Gold. It's really good. And so she just finished this book, and I was there. I ended up buying the book, and as I was standing in line, I was reading like the foreword, and she was talking about her about being in the Chitlin circuit. I was like, yeah, of course she was in the Chitlin circuit, right? So because that during that era, all like the famous people that we love were in that Chitlin circuit, and I was like, I'm wondering like, how was she able to keep her her sort of spirits up? And although it was great to perform, I'm sure like having to go through the back door and all those other kinds of things that happen around segregation, like how does she keep her, I guess, sight on like the stars, you know what I mean? And it's also, I also kind of felt like I wanted to have some advice from her because, things are really starting to percolate right for me. And so, how do I deal with this? And so I asked her a few questions, and she said, she even held my hand. Like there were so many people around us, and she was so like intense on talking to me. It was really, it just really moved me. And I think it was just what I needed at that time. And she said, don't let fear get in your way. She said she felt like her trajectory might have been different or would have been different, but some of the decisions she made on fear, and so I would say put fear to the side, you just kind of go in. What I do sometimes when I'm feeling anxious or nervous, because even though I'm like talking a lot now, it's because I'm talking about photography. If I was at a party with you all, I'd be like the one in the corner, or yeah. So I often count to 10. So back in the day when I used to go to a lot of openings, I'd see someone that I want to speak to, and I would just count to 10 and just push myself forward towards them. Same with a model. If I see a model and I'm like intimidated by them, even till today, someone was talking about that, about asking strangers. Lola was talking about it, right? About asking people for strangers, asking strangers for photo shoots. It's like as many times as I've asked people, I'm like, what is wrong with you? Even when I get ready for a photo shoot, I'm nervous. I'm just kind of like, Lola, like, you know what I mean? You know how good you are. Like, why are you nervous? You know what I mean? You know all about the exposures, the film you're using, the lighting you're using, like what, but I think it's more being excited and anxious than really fear, So I would just say either count to 10, talk to some friends. We have an organization that I'm on the board of called Queer Art. And we have a lot of great sort of workshops. There's a mentorship program that we do. And there's Kamonge, which I'm a part of. So, possibly find a group that can help you talk through your ideas and your nervousness, your fears. But yeah, don't do fear. Do not do fear. I think that we, especially as women and as Black folk, it's like, if this isn't our time, I don't know when is. We need to do it now, and we need everybody to help us.
Such great wisdom right there. I see people resonating with that. I mean, you were doing this work decades ago when no one else was doing these things, and you had no one else to see doing this work and see that representation. So I think that's so important that you shared that. I'm so glad you mentioned Kamonge. Like, what is it like being now a part of that historic collective?
Where are you? Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. John Penner Hughes, who's one of the older members, or longest members, he grew up in my hometown in Montclair, and when I was in college, my mom, I haven't spoken much about my family, but I often speak a lot about them because they supported me throughout, ever since I was a little queer kid, wearing boys' clothes. They were always like, that's Lola, right? And that's really important for my trajectory. And now I forgot what did you ask me?
Oh, it was being part of the historic collective.
Oh yeah. So my mom made an appointment with John Penner Hughes for me to show him my work. So like, I think it was like Easter break. I was in college. I came home and we went to New York, and I showed him my portfolio, and that was kind of like one of the experiences that kind of like, I thought to myself, did I even write him a thank you note? But it was really the beginning of myself feeling like I was really a real photographer, and I don't even think I knew about Kamonge then, but then fast forward, now here I am, a peer of his, right? I'm in there with him. Another one of my favorites is Tony Barboza. Tony was probably one of the few Black photographers I learned about when I was in college, and now I'm like buddies with him. And, so it's just crazy that you sort of admire these people, and then you're peers with them, and then you're asking them for advice, or they're giving you advice, and it's a really beautiful thing. I mean, sometimes if I have a job that I can't do, I'll reach out to them. It's wonderful, and like many other organizations, they a couple years back, or maybe even 4 or 5 years back, they were like, okay, we need to make our group more inclusive, right? And say they brought more women in, We've got a couple queer people in there, you know what I mean? And so I really admire them for doing that, because I think that, we can't sort of like reprimand groups. Well, some groups we can, but many groups we can't reprimand because of the way that they were. If they have then decided to change, right? Because that's what we need more of. We need more institutions to be looking at where their cracks are, and if I can borrow that from that last series, and change those things, right? So it's a wonderful family. We used to meet together, but now we're meeting on Zoom. So I kind of miss getting like the real in-person hugs and stuff like that. But I mean, the stories, like the different parts of history that we've all been through, like Adger, which is, I call him El Presidente. Adger, he just has a show that's just opened up here. Some of the stories, he has, it's just, it's like a history book, a living history book. I love being part of them.
That's incredible. I wanted to ask a question about your again, your extensive body of work. You mentioned about just having staying power of photographs. Do you feel that you shoot exclusively with film, and if so, do you feel that helps you be more intentional with the photographs you make? And do you feel that the younger generation are creating that body of work now that will have that same staying power that you did, and still do?
It kind of broke up a little bit. In the beginning, you said, can you say it?
Yeah, sorry about that. Do you feel that, the younger generation is creating that same body of work that has that staying power, being intentional with the frames because, you are doing work with film, still doing work with film, and you're forced to slow down, you're forced to be intentional with each frame. And are we creating that same body of work that will have that staying power? Or are we just doing it, for Instagram and just that, do you understand what I'm saying?
Definitely not. And I do think that that's some of the danger of posting things on Instagram. Like I really consider what I put up, and I've usually like some of my work I get some post production done on it. So I mean, usually it's not a lot, but it's usually just kind of like making the work. Like say this series, that series, like making sure the orange is all the same color so that when it hangs, it all looks the same, right? So I'm not taking out like my bags or anything. It's just like making so that visually it looks great. And so I do sometimes think that those people who just kind of put up images all the time, I don't think that's beneficial. But I think there are a lot of people, I'm thinking about like Feli Maynard, who was my mentee a couple years back. They're doing some wonderful stuff, but I guess I'm kind of part of their work is also they're using like large format camera. So I think there is like a push to. I think there are actually there's like a movement to some people that are actually going away from digital, going back into old school style. So no, I think that every generation has their thing to say, and I think that I would imagine that probably teachers, most people who are in institutions, I'm sure teachers are telling students to slow down, but I think there's definitely something, every generation has something to say. I guess that's really how I would like to answer that question. And I think that there's a real excitement in what's going on with the youth. I mean, around gender, it's just like explosive. Like, yeah, I mean, I was talking, I did a talk with Renee Masai a couple of weeks ago, and, she pointed out the fact that my work has been talking about genderqueer issues for years before there was like, you get a PhD now in genderqueer issues, and sometimes I even before I have a talk, I'm kind of like, okay, do I have all the buzzwords? Am I saying all the words that people are saying nowadays? And then I'm just kind of like, Lola, just do you, you know what I mean? It's like that because there's a whole way to speak now, right? And so, and I'm not making fun at it. I'm just kind of pointing out the differences between the generations and how we speak about things, how we see things.
So true. I think it's such a good point that each generation will have something different to say. I I guess we're almost at time. So I guess my last question for you, what do you hope people remember your work and your legacy as? And I know that's such a loaded question, but what do you hope others take away from your body of work and the work that you'll still continue to make?
Well, I mean, I suppose really for me, it's kind of simple. I'm kind of simple. I'm not really complicated. And for me, what I would hope that everyone takes away from my work is the beauty of us all. And like that's the thing that connects us all. That inner beauty, right? And that inner beauty shines out, right? And so to just to see difference as something that's fun and exciting. You know what I mean? Like all my friends, I have like a Korean friend. Like I love hearing like learning about kimchi and learning about a culture of Korea, right? Like all my different friends from all the different, backgrounds that they come from. That excites me. So I'm kind of like, wow, that's what your whatever, that's what your holiday looks like, or you know what I mean? It's like it's a learning experience. And so I think, this whole thing about prejudging, right? Prejudice is prejudging. Like stop. Just stop that and just look at that beauty that brings us all together as one.
Such beautiful words. Anything else you'd like to share before we go?
I just really would love to kind of bless all those photographers, male and female out there. We're kind of like stepchildren to the art world, right? Because there's other arts. The other arts have sort of been around for so many years. And like I said, I've had a camera since I was a kid, so it's just lovely to see so many, photographers out there wanting to hear what we have to say, and yeah, just keep on pressing that shutter, making those images, and messing with patriarchy. Let's mess with them.
I love it. What a beautiful way to end. Thank you so much, Lola, seriously, for your time, for your work. I'm so grateful that you joined us.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.